Does China really have influence and pressure on Iran? Washington wants Beijing to restrain Tehran, but experts say it is not simple. Christina Liu, foreign policy reporter. Even before Iran launched hundreds of drones and missiles against Israel last weekend, U.S. officials urged China, a top trading partner of Iran, to use its influence to persuade Tehran to restrain provocations by them and their proxies across the Middle East. Saturday's retaliatory strike, which marked Iran's first direct attack on Israel, only increased U.S. scrutiny of Beijing's potential leverage in the Middle East. China has long been Iran's largest trading partner, and top U.S. officials, including President Joe Biden, have publicly pressed Beijing to help rein in Tehran, especially in light of its attacks. A months-long offensive by Iran-backed Houthi rebels in the Red Sea has disrupted global shipping. China represents about a third of Iran's total trade, and China is an important defender of Iran's interests at the United Nations Security Council, said John Alterman, director of the Middle East program at the Center's Strategic and International Studies, said. It seems to me that China is the only country that has the greatest ability to influence Iran, if it wants to. As tensions between Israel and Iran continue to escalate, U.S. lawmakers are increasing the pressure. In the latest move, the U.S. House of Representatives on Monday passed the Iran-China Energy Sanctions Act, designed to target Chinese companies that buy Iranian crude oil and thereby inject money into it. Iran's economy. The bill will now go to the Senate. As we speak, Iran is using its oil trade with China to bring in a staggering $150 million a day in revenue, U.S. Representative Josh Gottheimer said Monday. By importing millions of barrels of oil every day, China keeps the Iranian regime in business and provides vital funds for Tehran's chaotic agenda, including missile and weapons development, nuclear. But although the United States is increasingly looking to China to influence Iran, some experts warn it is not quite that simple. Few countries have as important economic ties with Tehran as Beijing. China has for more than a decade been Iran's largest trading partner, a long-standing relationship that has largely revolved around the oil trade. From 2020 to 2023, Chinese companies more than tripled their imports of Iranian oil, sending sales soaring to a 10-year high. But their economic relationship is also one of uneven influence. For example, last year, more than 90% of Iran's crude oil exports went to China. However, China has many suppliers other than Iran, with Tehran's supply accounting for only 10% of China's total imports. As Iran's largest trading partner and powerful patron, Beijing has privileged channels of communication with Tehran and certainly has more influence over the country than the U.S. or its allies, Patricia Kim, a fellow at the Brookings Institution, told Foreign Policy via email. But, she added, it is difficult to say how much Beijing will be able to restrain Tehran if Chinese leaders decide to take a more interventionist approach. While China has some leverage on oil sales and trade, that leverage is both politically and logistically challenging to wield, said William Figueroa, an expert on China-Iran relations at the University of Groningen. In the Netherlands said. For example, private Chinese refineries operating on the black market illegally buy the majority of Iranian oil, not state-run refineries. These private refineries are notoriously difficult to regulate, he said, making it difficult for Beijing to directly control Chinese imports of Iranian oil. The scale of Chinese investment in Iran, largely driven by private companies, also remains a sore point in relations between the two countries. China has regularly overinvested in Iran, Figueroa said, which has sparked complaints from Tehran and affects China's willingness to accept pressure.